How is everybody doing? We're going to take a look at Tears for Fears. In my mind, one of the great, underrated and understated British duos of the last 35-40 years, I guess. They were, in fact, one of the biggest acts of the 80s, one of the most successful, but in the 90s didn't seem to work out. So let's take a look at the albums right now. Tears for Fears go way back as far as 1981. It was a duo and consisted of Roland Orzabal and Kurt Smith. The first album, The Hurting, was released in 1983 and had some big enough hits on it. It's interesting, but it's also a little bit depressing. Some of the themes are not what Wham or Spandau Ballet or ABC would have been writing about at the time. Mad World was a big hit on this one. Change was another one. More or less synth pop. The main members of the band around this time: Kurt Smith, vocals, bass, keyboards; Roland Orzabal, vocals, keyboards, rhythm programming; Manny Elias, drumming; Ian Stanley, keyboard programming. These guys make a big contribution to the sound. Chris Hughes, I think he used to work with Adam and the Ants. Ross Cullum, Mel Collins, saxophone, you know him from the Rolling Stones and Dire Straits. Phil Palmer, guitar, great guitar player. So it's kind of deep stuff, really. Memories Fade is a great track, really good one. And Pale Shelter, yeah, it's good. You know, production is clear and some Lynn drums and stuff like that in it, and you know, the big 80s echoey vocals and synthesizer stabs. Watch Me Bleed is another good one as well. So it's kind of you know, acoustic guitars over drum machines and synths and stuff. I didn't really hear much of that band in 1983. I heard of them, but I didn't really, you know, there was a lot of competition in the charts back then. It was a very fertile time, synth pop, back in the early to mid 80s. Yeah. So the first album, yeah, it's worth investigation if you like that kind of stuff. But it's not their best work by any means, but it's the ideas of a band finding their feet. Songs from The Big Chair. This was their massive smash. It was even big in the USA. There was a big tour followed this. The first single, Shout, was released just around the start of 1985, which was a kind of a big year for pop, more serious pop. Big Chair it's a strange enough album. It makes you think. It's not it's not happy pop, you know. Shout itself, I think that's about primal therapy. Songs from The Big Chair. The Big Chair itself is again another reference to some type of therapy, I think. Shout was a smash, and it's a great track, and it was a worldwide hit. Then you move on to The Working Hour. It's another great track as well. Builds up and gets in there. A lot of the stuff on this is programmed from Fairlight, and a lot of percussion, a lot of sequencing and stuff. And then of course there's another smash, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. And then Mother's Talk, quite loud and jaunty and angular. And then a beautiful track on the album is I Believe. Very, very soulful, just Orzabal on the piano. Broken, it's another one. And then you've got Head Over Heels, which is another fantastic track, one of their best. Broken, live. It goes into a live. Yeah, I could never understand that. Yeah, it's a bit strange. And then Listen is kind of it's almost like a chant. It's just doesn't really. Yeah, it's not your typical pop, you know. It's definitely not. it just doesn't burst out and make everybody happy. It's a bit dour. That's the thing. I like these Mercury discs, by the way. They're quite cool. Yeah, this was a big album. Now, Tears for Fears actually didn't play Live Aid, which was a bit strange. They were quite big in the middle of 1985. I think they were touring at the time in the States, I'm not sure. But I don't think they even needed to because they were so big. Yeah. So this was produced by Chris Hughes and engineered by David Bascom. So yeah, that was their kind of high point, 85, 86. And that brings us to their third album, the troubled and weary masterpiece, The Seeds of Love. This was released in 1989, around September, October. This is a masterpiece. It's a fantastic album, and it's full of complex songs which are fantastic. Loads of melodies, loads of great playing from lots of guest musicians. This one began life in 1985 on the road in the States, where Roland was starting to write with the assistance of Nicky Holland, session musician, keyboard player, arranger. But the sessions were troubled. They started recording in 86. There was more sessions done in 87, 88. They kept tweaking stuff, going back and forth, and I think it was one of the most expensive albums ever recorded. But it's worth it. It really is a really good album, and one of my favourite albums of all time. When I bought it on compact disc back in 1989. This is the actual disc I bought. And it's a DDD recording, digital. So kicks off with Woman in Chains, and it's a kind of a slow ballad that builds up and builds up. Phil Collins plays drums on that. Pino Palladino on bass. Yeah, excellent. Then we move on to Bad Man's Song. This is probably one of the highlights of the whole album. It has to be heard. Starts off with kind of a hi-hat reminiscent of Birdland by Weather Report. You know, there's jazz chops on this album. It's fantastic. Sowing the Seeds of Love, another great one. That was a big hit. It's a little bit like I'm the Walrus by the Beatles. Advice for the Young at Heart, that was kind of a slightly kind of Latin tinged pop track. Then Standing on the Corner of the Third World, fantastic as well. Kind of kind of world music. It's got John Hassell on trumpet, who you might know from working with David Sylvian, people like that. Swords and Knives, it's another good one. And then we have Year of the Knife. And again, this crowd, it's like live. It's just baffling how they mixed in the crowd. And then Famous Last Words, which is a very nice track. Lovely melodies on it. They could really write some great songs when they put their mind to it. Again, they always, there's a mood to it. They always kind of leave you questioning and thinking. Like the old Fontana discs. Oleta Adams, it must be said, really brings this album to life as well. American soul singer that they met in a bar in 1985. Rang her and asked her to sing on Woman in Chains. So that's a duet. Neil Taylor plays on this guitar. Yeah, but having Pino Palladino and Manu Katché on drums. It's all the kind of stuff that you want. Really cool. I mean, they played with everybody at the time, Peter Palladino was everywhere in the 80s. Fantastic bass player. Paul Young. Go West. The albums are buying just to hear the bass alone if you're not even into the music. Nicky Holland is also on this. So yeah, some great bass musicians on it. If you like 80s pop, this is kind of less synth driven. There's more playing on it. That was the idea. They wanted to get away from the locked synth sound, the click clack, I guess. Seeds of Love, you can't really go wrong with. It's a masterpiece. It's the band's high point. I mean, Songs to the Big Chair, it's their high point commercially, but artistically, the Seeds of Love is an essential album, and definitely an album that you get a lot out of. This is the Deluxe Edition from 2020. It came out in a 5 CD box set as well. Big Chair was also given the same treatment. There you go. You just get 2 discs and a booklet, which doesn't really tell you much. It's a bit sparse, and I was a bit disappointed. But in the 5 CD box set, you get interviews and stuff like that. So this is only kind of scratching the surface. And what people get here is a big selection of B-sides. So we got 7-inch versions of the singles: Seeds of Love, Woman in Chains, and then there's a few interesting things: Always in the Past, My Life in the Suicide Ranks. There's a few instrumentals as well: Advice for Young at Heart, 7-inch, Music for Tables, and then Johnny Panic and the Bible of Dreams. It's kind of a hip-hop thing. There's a couple of mixes of that here, yeah. Bit unusual for Tears for Fears, but even on Big Chair, some of the B-sides were a bit very mechanical, and you know, they're almost going into electro and stuff like that. So, Sowing the Seeds of Love US radio edit, and then Advice for the Young at Heart Italian radio edit, Year of the Knife Canadian single version. Yeah, that was a single as well. And so was Famous Last Words, but it didn't even tickle the charts. And yeah, so this is a nice compilation. That's what I have of an already classic album. So in 1993, the duo went their separate ways, and Roland Orzabal released another Tears for Fears album called Elemental. I wasn't really going to put this in the video, but I have it. There was another one from 1995 called Raoul and the Kings of Spain. I actually don't have that. It's not great. This one is it's only okay. You kind of miss Kurt Smith's altar boy vocal on it. Elemental, Cold is a good track. Yeah, Break It Down Again. There's some good stuff on it, you know, but it kind of loses my attention halfway through. You know, there's 3 or 4 really good tracks on it, but yeah, you could pick this up for as little as 50 cents. By then the magic was gone. You know, there was probably very, very, very 90s. You know, the kind of black and white photos and the treated colour photos. Yeah, very, very 90s. Yeah, it's only okay. Saturnine, Marshall and Lunatic. This is a 1996 compilation, mainly of B-sides and stuff that didn't make any albums as far as I know. Johnny Panic and the Bible of Dreams, The Big Chair, Schrodinger's Cat, My Life in the Suicide Ranks, When in Love with a Blind Man, Pharaohs. That's a great track. It's got the rhythm of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. You can hear the shipping forecast in the background. That's a beautiful track, yeah. Be nice in a movie. Deja Vu and the Sins of Science, The Marauders, Tears Roll Down, New Star, The Body Wah, Lord of Karma, Blood Letting Go, Always in the Past, Sea Song. That's a great track as well. Ashes to Ashes, Empire Building, The Way You Are. I forgot to mention as well, there's a song, Tears Roll Down. It was an instrumental B-side from the Seeds of Love era, and then they released a full song version of it in '92 when their Greatest Hits album came out. That is a great track. Would have been great on the Seeds of Love. But this one, it's for collectors really. I don't know where I found this. I didn't even know they released it. Found it inside in a some second-hand shops. So here, it just goes through a little bit CDs. Yeah, it's, if you want to be completist on CD, you'll probably need this. Tears for Fears, the collection. This is just a compilation that you find inside music shops, and you grab it at the last second for the drive home in your car. This is just kind of picks at the albums. Nothing special really. Pharaohs is on it though. It opens with Pharaohs, which is kind of nice. And other than that, it's just, you know, kind of more deep cuts as well though. You know, things like The Working are on it. Year of the Knife. Yeah, it goes into the Elemental album as well. Yeah, so there you go. Empire Building, then quirky little instrumentals. Oh, it was in the past. Yeah, so this is kind of, it has kind of rare B-sides on it as well, you see, so that's kind of a lure for the fans. And finally, Mad World, the collection. This is from 2010. Again, one of those super low priced compilations, and this is probably one of the best ones because it's got 35 tracks on it for less than the price of a Big Mac meal in McDonald's. Certainly worth investigation. It's got everything you need. Nice artwork as well. Here you go. A little bit of spiel about the actual band and the track listings and credits. So yeah, that's a good one. So yeah, Tears for Fears, probably not for everybody, but obviously if you like 80s pop, pop music in general, you probably will enjoy their music. I would definitely recommend buying The Seeds of Love if it's your first time ever hearing it. You're probably going to love it. It's a great album, one of the best albums of the last 30 years. So anyway, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe and take care.